Welcome back to Indianomics. We've been speaking with the best-known mind in Indian agricultural economics, Dr. Ashok Gulati. Dr. Gulati, before going to the break, you were telling us about what things might cost. You said 4 to 5 lakh crore. Is that for the basic income scheme?
No, 4 to 5 lakh crores is not the annual package. That is the cost of loan waiver if you want to do one time. And the income approach, or universal basic income you call it, or the Raitu Bandhu model, or the Odisha model of Kalia, whatever you call, I feel it's going nationwide. It's going to cost you about 2 lakh crores a year. Now, the difference between the two is that if you do loan waivers, it will cost you high, but it benefits only 30% of the farmers, because only 30% of the farmers take institutional credit. So 70% of the peasantry still will be under stress. So you spend more, get less political mileage through loan waivers, although the noise is more about loan waivers. Whereas in this income approach, the way Raitu Bandhu has done, it claims to have reached 93% of the cultivators, the farmers, landowners. There are improvements that can be made to include tenants, and if agricultural laborers, the way Odisha is trying to do, it will need effort and time, but you can reach at least 90% of the farmers, so you can redress a part of their distress. Whereas in case of either price policy approach, higher price policy, or loan waivers, you can't reach more than 20 to 30% of the farmers.
Okay. Well, how do you reach landless labor? Even if the Raitu Bandhu scheme is scaled up nationally, it only touches the landowners or even maybe tenant farmers, but it doesn't touch landless. Is that not in the works at all, anything for landless labor?
You know, at present, Raitu Bandhu touches only the landowners, not even the tenants. The difficulty was that tenants can change every year or every second year, and therefore how to keep a track of that. So that's an operational challenge if you want to include tenants. Whereas Odisha's Kalia scheme has talked about including the tenants as well as the agricultural laborers. And we are asking them this basic question, that how are you going to identify? You know, the land census that is done does record certain things, but it will have to be updated and verified at the Gram Sabha level, or whatever the administrative system at the lowest level exists. And there could be all sorts of inclusion or exclusion errors, that's why I said within 3 months you can't do a major you can do only announcement, but not really implement it in a big way. You have to take the help of the states. The center cannot do alone.
Okay, what about the Fasal Bima Yojana? Can the insurance schemes be improved upon for electoral gains or even otherwise?
You know, I think Fasal Bima Yojana, Pradhan Mantri's, it was a great step in the right direction. But unfortunately, the way it has been implemented, the cutoff points for registering the compensation assessment, damage assessment, and the compensation to be given, it takes months and years. It could have been done with better technology within a week's time. That's why the farmers don't have full trust that Fasal Bima Yojana has really benefited them because of the operational problems it has faced. Although it is primarily centers, big expenditure going into that. States are also pitching in, but the implementation has to be done at a state level. I would say that the operational challenges in this country are so much that whatever you want to do, give it directly into the accounts of the farmers, link it to Aadhaar. That's the easiest way, and the biggest trump card that Pradhan Mantri had was opening Jan Dhan accounts at such a massive scale, but they have not been fully utilized to transfer all the subsidies and this type of assistance to the farmers or even agricultural laborers or others. I would say even put your food subsidy, monetize that and put it through these accounts and link to the Aadhaar, so you know each family how much they are getting from different places. That's the way to go forward.
Okay, if you can put on your generalist hat, Dr. Gulati, the worry is that the bond market is scared that there could be a bigger borrowing. Now, should the bond market worry about some borrowing this year itself, or should its worry primarily be a borrowing that will start post-April or post-May when a new government comes?
You know, I can give a very general answer. More, you need to talk to RBI officials and the management what impact it will have. But, you know, it cannot be rolled out, any scheme cannot be rolled out within the next 2-3 months unless they simply say whatever the Jan-Dhan accounts are there, we are putting 10,000 rupees in each account and we'll later figure out what profession you are in. Okay. So it's more like a universal basic income at the lowest level. That's it.
Okay, well, one hopes that's also not one of the packages being considered. That sounds genuinely reckless. But, you know, since we spoke about the Reserve Bank as well, do you think announcements or even imminent announcements of such a package will have an impact on the thinking of the MPC? The MPC is faced with a clement situation in terms of food and fuel prices, and there are some people who are also expecting that there is elbow room for rate cuts. But if such large fiscal packages are on the anvil already in the states and impending one in the center, do you think that space gets lost for the MPC?
Latha, you are luring me into a field where I have constraints. I'm associated with RBI in the board. Okay,
but you're not associated with the MPC, sir.
The management of RBI. No. But I think RBI is more better equipped to respond to your questions.
All right, we will leave it at that. Well, actually,
anything on agriculture, I can respond.
All right, okay. Let me end with the longer-term solution. Of course, there will be packages announced and rival packages announced, and that will take away, from capex expenditure and put it into perhaps revenue expenditure. But for the new government that will come in May, even if it is the current dispensation coming back, what would be a sensible solution for what is quite clearly very pressing farm distress?
You know, one thing that you have to be very clear about, most of us are thinking these are doles being announced. I do not call it a dole. I have termed it as an atonement. Yes, it is a political bait at one end to the voters, but actually it is an atonement for not reforming agriculture and following those policies which have implicitly taxed agriculture for a long time. In fact, we have done a massive study with OECD. 17 years we have covered, and we have found that agriculture has been implicitly taxed in this country to the tune of 14% of the gross farm receipts of the farmers. So actually it's a payback time. You had hidden policies of export restrictions, of restrictive domestic marketing policies, stocking limits, and so on and so forth. All these have ended up suppressing the prices for the consumer and against the farmer. You have a food subsidy every year. 1,69,000 crores is the budgeted subsidy this year, and there were unpaid bills of FCI of 1,34,000 crores. We can give to the consumer, but when it comes to the farmer, we say, oh, these are doles and so on and so forth. Why don't you free up the markets totally? Allow the private sector to come in a big way. I think the first thing that the farmer needs is freedom of markets and freedom to choose the best technologies in the world. We have failed to assure that, and therefore I call these types of announcement now an atonement for not doing the reforms in agriculture sector.
Okay, but that point is taken, sir. It's definitely one of the more neglected sectors. But ultimately, will we be able to support 50-60% of the population on agriculture? Ultimately, the answer, doesn't it lie in providing alternative occupations?
Sure. But the question is your non-farm sector growing at a fast enough pace that people can move out, and are you doing enough skill formation of those in the rural areas so that people can move out to the high productivity jobs? I think that pace is extremely slow in this country, because the construction sector, where normally they go in herds, that is not picking up at a pace fast enough. So in the absence of that, agriculture has become a parking lot of the poor. And something has to be given for the implicit taxation that you have imposed on them for such a long time. So I think there are major reform agenda that had been waiting. This government had a wonderful opportunity. It was ruling in 21, 22 states, and they could have done major reforms. But I'm sorry to say, it's a bit of disappointment that that opportunity is lost today. And loan waivers are not a solution. Everybody knows that. But these are the gimmicks and these are the baits at the political time of each party.
Well, Dr. Gulati, thank you very much for joining us with this comprehensive conversation on the near term.
Thank you for having me.
The medium term and the long term for agriculture. So key takeaways from our guest and practically the best known mind on Indian agriculture is, one, nothing much can be done in the next probably 8-12 weeks to ensure a better deal for farmers. So maybe for the moment, the bond market should not worry that there will be a bigger bill, but the bond market definitely needs to worry about the medium term, about next year's borrowing. Quite possible that there will be large packages announced in terms of either farm incomes or waivers or extensions of loans, which will mean taking away from capital expenditure as well as higher borrowing next year. And the third big takeaway from Dr. Gulati, of course, is that lasting solutions lie in, correcting the market errors, allowing a fair price to the farmer, a remunerative price to the farmer, rather than protecting consumers all the time at the expense of the farmer. And, of course, creating non-farm jobs, especially in the construction sector, something which doesn't look like on the anvil. Thank you very much for watching this special edition of Indianomics.